to 20.
Okay, let's go ahead with Hebrew reference to Judges chapter 15. And so this is now continuing his story with his involvement with the wrong people, the Philistines. Now remember, do you guys remember the verse? He's involved with the wrong people, the enemies of God, the Philistines. And yet, I want to ask, whose idea was this? Do you remember whose idea it was?
God's
Why?
idea.
It's God's idea.
Oh,
All I can conclude, and I guess Manny, you agree that it was God's idea. Okay, so let's continue. Judge chapter 15, verse 1. Go ahead, I'll pause you as needed, Princess.
Okay. Samson's vengeance on the Philistines.
what do you think?
Later on, during the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat as a present to his wife. He said, "I'm going into my wife's room to sleep with her." But her father wouldn't let him in. "I truly thought you must hate her," her father explained. "So I gave her in marriage to your best man. But look, her younger sister is even more beautiful than she is. Marry her instead." Samson said, "This time I cannot be blamed for everything I am going to do to you Philistines." Then he went out and caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs, and he fastened a torch to each pair of tails. Then he lit.
Okay, so let's pause this. You saw that, or you read that his wife was given away. Okay, and so they took his wife away from him.
Yeah.
Then the father offered his daughter. He didn't want the daughter. So, or the sister, either way you want to put it. Didn't want the sister. So now he's going to take vengeance on these enemies, Philistines. But it's not because he's doing it for God or he's doing it for his people. Right?
He's mad.
Remember, he's doing it for himself.
Yeah.
You know? Because he's angry. So he's going to take it out on them, who happens to be the enemies of his people, the enemies of God, right? Okay, so let's continue what he does, catching these foxes.
Then he lit the torches and let the foxes run through the grain fields of the Philistines. He burned all their grain to the ground, including the sheaves and the uncut grain. He also destroyed their vineyards and olive groves. "Who did this?" the Philistines demanded. "Samson," was the reply, "because his father-in-law from Timnah gave Samson's wife to be married to his best man." So the Philistines went and got the woman and her father and burned them to death. "Because you did this," Samson vowed, "I won't rest until I take my revenge on you." So he attacked the Philistines with great fury and killed many of them.
Okay, so what happened to the father and the daughter?
He
His
burned
wife?
them. He burned them.
So they burned, not
Yeah.
he. The Philistines, they
They burned
they
them.
looked at that as because of his association with Samson. We're gonna kill you for that because of all the destruction, all the damage. You could call it vandalism, but all the damage that he caused with fire. Okay, so it's going back and forth. Vengeance is going back and forth, and it's between Samson versus the Philistines. Okay, let's continue. We're in Judges chapter 15. Go ahead and tell us the verse.
Verse 7.
Okay, let's continue.
"Because you did this," Samson vowed, "I won't rest until I take my revenge on you." So he attacked the Philistines with great fury and killed many of them. Then he went to live in a cave in the rock of Etam. The Philistines
So you see the back and forth uh, fight, and the Philistines are very powerful. Remember, they're the ones who have power over Israel right now. And there's this one man who seems to be fighting against the Philistines for personal reasons. And, you know, he's causing a lot of problems and trouble. Let's continue. Go ahead.
The Philistines retaliated by setting up camp in Judah and spreading out near the town of Lehi. The men of Judah asked the Philistines, "Why are you attacking us?" The Philistines replied, "We've come to capture Samson. We've come to pay him back for what he did to us." It's Susie.
Okay, hold on. So you see the back and forth. They're taking vengeance on Samson. Why don't you go ahead and finish the whole chapter, because chapter 16 will continue with Susie. Go ahead.
So 3,000 men of Judah went down to get Samson at the cave in the rock of Etam. They said to Samson, "Don't you realize the Philistines rule over us? What are you doing to us?" But Samson replied, "I only did to them what they did to me." But the men of Judah told him, "We have come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines." All right.
Okay, let's pause a little bit, because you know the principle of scriptures for the believers, right? Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Vengeance is Samson's. Here, you see how complicated faith is. Samson is taking vengeance upon himself for what they did to him.
Right.
God is allowing it. He's allowing it. And because, you know, the men of Judah, you know, the people were fearful of the Philistines and what they're capable of doing, they said, "We're going to hand you over. They want you." So rather than them destroying our, you know, our families, our lives, our lifestyle, we're just going to hand you over because it's you they want, not us. It's your fight, not ours.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
All right, Samson said, "but promise that you won't kill me yourselves." 13. We will only tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. They replied, "We won't kill you." So they tied him up with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. As Samson arrived at Lehi, the Philistines came shouting in triumph. But the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson, and he snapped the ropes on his arms as if they were burnt stands of flax, and they fell from his wrists. Then he found the jawbone of a recently killed donkey. He picked it up and killed 1,000 Philistines with it.
Now imagine the power of Samson, that no matter 1,000 people will try to kill one man, they couldn't do it.
Wow.
This is the kind of power that he had. I've heard of, you know, real war stories where, yeah, one person can defeat,
Hello?
you know, a lot of men, but 1,000, yeah, that's what Samson was able to do, you know, with his miraculous strength. And then go ahead, continue. We're in Judges 15, verse
16.
16. Go ahead.
It's Susie's turn.
No, just.
Oh, you want me to continue? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Pastor.
she'll have chapter 16. Chapter 16.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Susie will get chapter 16.
Then Samson.
It's a cleaner break. Go ahead.
Okay. Verse 16. Then Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, I've piled them in heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men." When
Could you imagine a jawbone of a donkey? He's swinging it like a bat, you know, and no matter how many try to attack him, he'll get there before they get there. He must have had a lot of speed to do that. Because if you're going to be attacked from the back, you must have been able to be fast enough to, to hit them. And one strike, him being so powerful, one strike knockout, knock them all out just with one. And it's the jawbone of a donkey. Okay, there you go. And kind of faith, as far as
Pastor, you're a bit choppy.
chosen by God before. Okay, I'm in the road. So chosen by God before he was even born. Okay, continue.
17, when he finished his boasting, he threw away the jawbone, and the place was named Jawbone Hill. Samson was never thirsty. Samson was now very thirsty, and he cried out to the Lord, "You have accomplished," with his head in her lap. And then she called, I'm sorry, and
Hold
then
on,
she,
hold on. He says, "You have given your servant this great victory," right?
oh, I'm sorry. I turned the page advanced, way too advanced. Sorry, Pastor.
No, don't be sorry. We're working
Okay.
it out. That's all good.
Okay. Let's do verse 18. Samson was now very thirsty, and he cried out to the Lord, "You have accomplished this great victory by the strength of your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of these pagans?" So
Okay,
God,
stop right here. Why? Because I want to highlight his faith, right? This is his faith. First of all, he's acknowledging God in this victory, okay? And, with all the things that he's gone through in his life, the betrayal, the desire for the enemy's women, you know, uh, all these things that he's gone through, he's acknowledging God for the victory. Now remember, I know that there are athletes, even actors and actresses that give God glory, especially in athletic competition. They give thanks to God for their victory. But that kind of victory is different because, there's Christians on both sides of the team. And both sides can be asking God for victory, right? For those who are watching football, the Rams, the 49ers have Christians wanting God to give them the victory. Well, the New York Jets, they also have Christians wanting to give them the victory. So who's God going to choose? See, that's just a sporting event. This is life and death. Totally different. But what we want to acknowledge is, Samson's faith is saying, God, you gave me the victory over these Philistines. But now he's going to say, but I'm thirsty. Okay, continue, princess.
so God caused water to gush out of a hollow in the ground at Lehi, and Samson was revived as he drank. Then he named that place the spring of the one who cried out, and it is still in Lehi to this day. Samson judged Israel for 20 years during the period when the Philistines dominated the land.
Okay, are we talking about it's there to this day? It's there
No,
to this day?
the
Even
water.
2024, it's there to this day?
No. No.
Whose day? The writer. To this day, according to the writer's day.
And who's the writer?
Uh,
Judges.
that's research. But at least you guys don't get confused and say, oh, it's there to this day. It should be there 2024. No, okay? So whenever you deal with that, keep in mind the context, historical context, right? Okay, that's the story so far. Now we're gonna get into the movie, Samson and Delilah, the famous movie. Okay,
Traitor.
Susie, it's your job. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Where is she?
Hold on.
Susie.
Let's get her unmuted. Hello, Susie. Susie, are you able to unmute? Oh, no.
I'm muted.
I hear you loud and clear now. You're now
Okay.
coming in loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay. Chapter 16. Samson's weakness. Now Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute there. Now this is the NASB version that I'm reading from, okay?
Yeah.
Now Samson went to Gaza.
Okay, let me get into this.
Okay.
Prostitutes. Okay.
Right.
Remember, Jephthah was the son of a
Prostitute.
A
okay.
whore.
And then what was her name? Rahab was a
Whore.
Rahab.
That's
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Now
English
you got
term.
Samson, who's interested in a prostitute in the land of, where the Philistines are. She's a Philistine.
Yeah.
And she's she's now being pursued by Samson. Go ahead.
Samson. Okay. So now Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute there and had relations with her. When it was reported to the Gizites, saying Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. And they kept silent all night, saying, let's wait until the morning light when we will kill him. Then we will kill him.
Okay,
now,
you notice where it was taking place? In Gaza.
Yeah.
Where's the war going on in Israel? In
Gaza.
Okay, you got an idea of where, I don't think they changed the location since then, but you have a general idea of where Gaza is. Okay, go on.
Okay. And they kept silent all night, saying, let's wait until the morning light, then we will kill him. Now Samson lay asleep until midnight, and at midnight he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate and the doorpost and pulled them open along with the bars. Then he pulled them on his shoulder and he carried them up to the top of the mountain, which is opposite Hebron.
Okay, so this is a significant sign of his strength. Those doors, they say they're doors to the city gates. They're not
very heavy
doors like to the house. The doors to the city gates are probably 5 times or more bigger and heavier than a regular door house, right? And it's solid because it's a city gate. So here he is going to carry the city gate, okay, and go uphill with it.
Wow.
And so just a sign of his strength and a sign of, what kind of person people, think about Samson. What kind of Philistines are kind of looking at this and saying, this is the kind of man we're dealing with here. Okay? We're dealing with this man. He's kind of unstoppable. Okay? Let's continue.
Right. So where am I?
Verse 4, I think.
Verse 4?
4.
Okay. Okay. After this, it came about that when he was in love with the woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah, so the governors of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, entice him and see where his great strength lies and how we can overpower him so that we may bind him to humble him. Then we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, Please tell me where your strength lies and how you can be bound to humble you. And Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh animals, tendons, then I have not been dried. Then I will become weak and be like any other man. Then the governors of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh animals, tendons that had not been dried, and then she bound him with them. Now she had men prepare for an ambush in an inner room, and she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he tore the tendons to pieces, just like a thread of flax is torn apart from when it comes loose, when it comes too close to the fire. So the strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, behold, you have toyed with me and told me lies. Now please tell me how you may be bound. Then he said to her, if they bind me tightly with the new ropes, which have not been used, then I will be weak and I will be like any other man. So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But the men in the ambush were waiting in the inner room, but he tore the ropes from his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, up till now you have toyed with me and told me lies. Tell me how you may be bound. And he said to her, if you weave the 7 locks out of my hair with the web, and it fastened it with the pin, then I will be weak like any other man. So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 locks of hair with the web. It fastened it. She took the pin and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled out of the pin from the loom and the web. Then she said to him, how can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have toyed with me these 3 times, and have not told me where your greatest strength is. It could be when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him that his soul was annoyed to death. So he told her all that was in his heart, and he said to her, a razor has never came near my head, for I have never been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am not shaved, then by my strength I will leave. No, it says, if I am shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I will become weak and be like any other man. When
Okay,
Delilah
so here
saw,
we are. Yeah, so here we are. We have several attempts by Delilah in trying to test whether what Samson told him about his source of strength is denied by what Samson told her, and none of them worked. You can see a spiritual warfare. You can look at it from this angle, a spiritual warfare, where the enemy, and remember, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. So when we're talking about spiritual forces of evil, constantly nagging at your head to commit certain sins, okay, or to weaken your spiritual walk, it'll not just go disappear after one time.
right,
It's gonna keep attacking again and again. It won't give up. That's your battle. Spiritual warfare can get like that. It's an ongoing battle, and You know, the desires of the sinful nature is against the desires of the Holy Spirit. So they're in
Mhm.
conflict with each other. And in this case, the nagging day after day. Well, eventually he told her the secret um, of his strength is from the Nazarite vow. You know, that commitment that the angel
Right.
of the Lord told his parents he's got to live a Nazarite vow, and he cannot get his hair cut, among other list of things. And here he is, giving away the source of his spiritual strength, physical strength, actually, not spiritual. He was not very strong spiritually, strong physically, and he was giving it away. And now she was going to use it. Every single time he said it was this, she tried to use it against him, and it didn't work. Now this is the time. Okay, go ahead, um, Susie.
I'm on
Continue.
verse 18, right?
Yeah.
When Delilah saw that he had told her all that was in his heart, she sent word and called the governors of the Philistines, saying, "Come up once more, for he has told me all that is in his heart." Then the governors of the Philistines came up to her and brought up money in their hands, and she made him sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to humble him, and his strength left him. And she said, "The Philistines are, are upon you, Samson." Then he took away from his sleep. No, then he awoke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. Then the Philistines seized him and gouged his eyes out. And they brought him down to Gaza and restrained him from the bronze chains. And he became a grinder in the prison. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it was shaved off.
Now there's a lot
Now,
of spiritual takes that you can take from this.
mhm.
Um, this phrase, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. I've heard some preachers use that. You know, when you're living in sin as a Christian, this phrase is used, and it's like, because you live in sin, the Lord has left you. No, that's not the gospel, okay? God will never leave
Right,
you.
right,
He'll punish you before he'll leave you. This is my take. But this is during the time of, you know, the judges, and the way this is before the gospel message. But this is used, you know. Maybe it's a principle, but I can't see it as a principle because it's not under the gospel. But God did leave him, and he didn't know it because of all the dabbling with
right.
this prostitute, as well as just, you know, with the wrong kind of Lord. He did not. You see that? But the Lord did not. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. That's one. Here's
Mhm.
another take. When they seized him, they gouged out his eyes and took him down to
And they
Gaza.
brought him down to Gaza and
Yeah.
restrained him with the bronze
Okay.
chains.
Okay. So, what can you take from that? When you're living in sin, or, you know, dabbling in sin, it can affect your eyes. Okay, it can affect your
Mm-hmm.
eyes. That means how you see things, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a
Yeah.
believer, how you see things. And that's why we need each other to help each other stay accountable. You know, we need to remind each other, hey, you're going down the wrong path, because somehow
Right.
you start seeing things wrong and you think you're right. You know, Jesus mentioned about how your eyes are a light to the body.
Right.
Remember that
Right.
phrase? If your
Yeah.
eyes are good, what? Your whole body will be healthy. And I'm sure
Right.
Jesus was speaking spiritually. But if your eyes are bad, then it's gonna make your whole being unhealthy.
Yeah, your whole soul
See, so
is
how you
bad.
see with your eyes is critical. And when you're in sin, or when sin is deeply embedded in your, you know, your life, pay attention to how you see, because your eyes could be spiritually gouged. Okay, and that is
Mm-hmm.
the way you see things, right? You don't see things with the pure eyes. You see it
Right.
with darkened eyes. So those
Yeah.
are the 2 points that you want to take. And now he's enslaved. You don't want to be enslaved to sin.
No.
Yes, you have freedom, right? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. But when you are enslaved to sin, that's not what God called you to be, right? He doesn't want you
Mm-hmm.
to be enslaved to sin. So you got to also pay attention to how you can be enslaved to sin if you're not careful. Enslaved to drugs, enslaved to other things, and you know that are not good for you. Okay, let's continue, Susie.
Okay, number 20, verse 23. Now the governors of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to
Oh, sorry,
Dagon.
I missed the part where his hair started to grow back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so another principle to keep in
Verse
mind.
20, after they gouged his, oh, I didn't do 22.
Oh, you read it, but I didn't touch on it as a spiritual
Okay.
lesson. So a
Okay.
spiritual lesson you could take from that is that your hair can grow back.
Right.
Your spiritual life can be restored. There's always hope. Don't give up and don't quit, because there's an opportunity at some time in the future for your hair, right, to grow back. It'll grow back,
Right. The
right?
Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
Okay.
And
So
the Lord
that's
giveth back.
another principle to keep in mind, that you know
Right.
God can always restore your spiritual life.
Right. Right.
Let's move on.
Okay. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it was shaved off. Then the governors of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate. For they said, our God has had in Samson, our enemy, over to us. When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God has assembled, no, our God has handed our enemy over to us, even the destroyer of our country, who has killed many of us. It so happened that when they were in high spirits, that they said, call for Samson, that he may amuse us. So they called for Samson from the prison and the entertainments, and he entertained them. And they made him stand between the pillars. Then Samson said to the boy who was holding his hand, let me feel the pillars on which thou rests, so that I may lean against them. Now the house was full of men and women, and all the governors of the Philistines were there, and all 3,000 men and women were on the roof looking on while Samson was entertaining them.
As you notice, the culture of the Bible is, patriarchal, dominated with male point of view. They only counted the men 3,000. Now, you might want to consider the women were not counted. And if you double that, now there's about 6,000 and maybe more that were in this arena, that
Right.
they want to see Samson perform, because they're celebrating their god Dagon giving Samson over to them. So Let's continue.
Okay. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, Lord God, please remember me and please strengthen me just this time, O God, that I may at once take vengeance on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then
Okay, here we go
Samson,
again with Samson. Okay, you notice how I guess some even call him narcissistic, right? Because it's all
mhm,
about me. It's all about me. What they did
right,
to my eye, I want to pay them
yeah,
back. But you know, that's how complicated people and faith can be. It's like he's a man of faith. He was still able to call on God to give him the strength to kill all these people for what they did to his eyes. There's no mention of, you know, so that my people can be free. It's as if, you know, that's secondary. His first priority is
right,
me paying them back for what they did to me. Vengeance is mine, says Samson. Okay, this is the Samson we're
right,
dealing with, and he's gonna take vengeance and kill and destroy because of what they did to what? What they did to his eyes.
right.
Okay. Daniel, you have a hand raised? Did you have your hand raised, Daniel, or no?
No, maybe later, Pastor.
Okay, go ahead, continue with you're wrapping up the story of Samson. So go ahead, Sister Susie.
Okay, then Samson called to the Lord and said, Lord God, please remind me and please strengthen me just this one time. O God, that I may at once take vengeance on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then Samson grasped 2 middle pillars on which the house rested. I remember this story. Embraced himself against them, the one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson said, let me die and the Philistines. No, let me die with the Philistines. And he pushed outward powerfully so that the house fell on the governors and all the people who were in it. And the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he killed during his lifetime. Then his brothers and all his father's household came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol and the tomb of his father Manoah. So he had judged Israel for the 20 years.
And that's the story of Samson.
Amen.
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 You know, if you guys want to see that movie, the title is Samson and Delilah. Okay.
Yes, it is.
It's out there. So there's a lot of resources just to give you a nice, entertaining visual, I think.
Elizabeth Taylor.
I think Victor Mature is the guy who played
Was
Samson.
she in that movie?
Elizabeth Taylor. Yeah, with Richard
Yeah.
Burton.
You'll have to double check. You'll have to double check.
Eric
But
Uh-huh.
that's the story. You guys want me to look it up for you real quick?
Yeah, it was
I can look it up for you real quick.
What was the name of the movie? I just watched it.
The old one is Elizabeth Taylor